Okay, we're back. New week, new stuff. A lot of stuff is going on in the world of sports. Last week was, last week into last weekend was one of those that you look at. I mean, I look at a couple of weeks ago and I knew they were going to have all these finals and all these tournaments kind of converging at the same time. And it's nice to see that they're still as fun as, they're as fun as they look. Because some of these big tournaments and races and stuff, they kind of, sometimes they're not as advertised. Sometimes the big guys don't show up, and the spectacle just isn't what you hope. But this week, again, every week. I mean, I say this every week, but it's literally true every week. It is as advertised. So, few main sports, which the big ones, the ones I cover every week here. Had some big stuff go down, some really big stuff. So we're just going to cover each one in turn on this fine, grey, very non-summer looking day. Euro 2020, obviously, if you haven't heard, where have you been? Last time we spoke, we were cracking on with, where were we? We're cracking on with Group C and D, and I think Group E had just finished, so we're just before the France group. So France opened up beating Germany last week. They looked pretty good. Germany didn't look like they had anything for France. France won that game. It was only 1-0, but it's quite comfortable. And then Portugal went and beat Hungary 3-0. Ronaldo, Mr. Tournament football himself, just showed up and grabbed two. I mean, it was 0-0. I think it was till the 80th minute. Some kind of in the 80th minute somewhere. And Ronaldo was like, yeah, I'll have 2 goals, please. It is a tournament after all, so I think he's the all-time European Championship top goal scorer, which is not surprising at all to anyone. So he dragged them through, and then kind of throughout early last week, or towards the late of last week, things kind of petered out. Just games went on as they kind of should. Wales got a good win against Turkey, who have been extremely disappointing. Italy won again. Italy have been very good throughout this whole tournament. Belgium, Holland, they both won. And then it got round to England again, and they just didn't show up really against Scotland, who were really up for it. And the atmosphere was cool to watch. It was a cool game to watch because they were obviously as you probably heard, all the Scottish fans up in Trafalgar Square, Leicester Square, making it a big occasion, which I think the England players, for all their talent and their potential, I think, big games, that's obviously where your reputation should be forged. And this was a big game in the sense that it's Scotland. You haven't played Scotland in a major tournament since Euro 96, and it's always big, even if it is, even though the perceived difference between the two teams, it's always going to be a big game. Kind of like, again, I'm going back to Arsenal Tottenham again, but kind of like Arsenal Tottenham for the longest time, such a big gap, and I guess Man City, Man United as well. It's always going to be a big game, even if there is a gap between the two teams, just because it's the local derby. So, in England, Scotland, no love lost there. So Scotland showed up to that game, looked really good. Czech Republic and Croatia drew. This England's group has been strange, to be fair. Like the other groups, so Italy's group, the first 3 groups have kind of all gone to plan. Italy, Belgium, and Holland all won those groups. 3 out of 3, barely conceded any goals. Looked impressive throughout. I mean, Belgium are kind of a strange one. I'm not really too sure about Belgium. They've got some good players, but I think the whole team, the defence certainly is not that great. Getting to Lukaku, and then Lukaku against very good defences could be an issue, as we saw in the Premier League. De Bruyne is obviously world class, but I think Belgium, the record. I think the record flatters to deceive a little bit. As good as they are, there are holes there that aren't in, say, Italy. Holland have kind of like, they had a fairly easy group, to be fair. I mean, Austria, Ukraine, and the lowest ranked team in there, Macedonia. They should have got through that group quite comfortably. So I think Holland have looked good. Italy, I think probably everyone's they've looked the best because I mean they've won all their games. They've not conceded. I don't think they've conceded a goal in 11 games. They're unbeaten in 30 or something. So I think there wasn't anywhere near this sort of chat about Italy pre-tournament. I can't remember where they were in the rankings or the betting odds, but people were not talking about Italy in the same breath as they were talking about Belgium and France and England. Some people. So Italy have kind of surprised a lot of people. They're like the surprise, in brackets of the tournament so far. Going back to England, that group. I mean, Czech Republic and England are through now, so they're qualified. Even if if one of them loses, they'll still be on 4 points. No matter what happens in the Croatia-Scotland game, they'll be through. So that changes things because obviously the winner, as we know, is going to play second in Group F, which is the group no one wants to play. And the way that group is looking at the minute, it might be even worse because the way Germany are looking, they should probably beat Hungary and win the group. They could win the group if France don't beat Portugal. So, I mean, yeah, that's gonna be interesting. I mean, France, Portugal could go either way. That is a toss-up completely. So Germany could end up winning that group, and if they win the group, England, if they win Group D, are going to end up playing Portugal or France, which is literally worst case scenario. So I don't think Croatia. I don't think Czech Republic are going to be motivated at all to win the group when they play England tonight. I just don't see how. That's going to be a thing. Like obviously, yeah, you want to try and win every game you can, but if they've already qualified for sure, and if they can just keep, well, in theory, if you keep it tight and just defend and hold out for a draw, you'll avoid playing one of those teams in the next round. So that's kind of like just some rookie insight. I mean, if I was playing, you want to win the game, but if you're Czech Republic, you're thinking, we're qualified already. We don't need to beat England. Like, first of all, you probably won't beat England anyway, but there's no added motivation to put your neck on the line because you've already qualified. You're going to be in the next round. You're going to play a knockout game anyway, and if you come second, you're going to get a much nicer one. You won't get one of the absolute favourites for the tournament because I think it's the group with Sweden and Spain. So I mean that group could go either way as well. So coming second in this group could really be positive just because of how Group E is looking. Because you've got Sweden who've already qualified. They're playing Poland, so Sweden could easily win the group. So second in this group could play Sweden. So Czech Republic, if you're sitting there in Czech Republic, you think, well, do we risk all our players, try and win the group against England, and then go and play probably Germany? I mean, it could be any of those three, but let's say it's Germany. Let's say France and Germany both win as they should. It's going to be Germany. Or do you want to go and play Sweden? Like, if you're Czech Republic as a nation like that, you're thinking we can get to quarterfinals of the Euros, yeah. So that's the thinking for Czech Republic. For England, if England lose tonight to Czech Republic, there's going to be problems. Even though they're qualified already. I mean, let's say England lose Czech Republic, and it could end up quite funny because England could lose Czech Republic tonight. Croatia and Scotland could draw because that could easily happen because Croatia aren't that good and Scotland don't score goals. So that could easily be a draw. And then England could qualify second and go and play Sweden in the next round and then end up in the quarterfinals. So that's literally just the way these tournament projections are going. But if England lose, the momentum's going to be at zero, and then I don't think you'd even fancy them against Sweden. To be fair, if they can't beat Czech Republic or Scotland, then it's real problems. So that group is Group D. England's group is funny, given that everyone's sort of no one's doing anything particularly great. Czech Republic have been good, to be fair. They've been, I guess, the standout team, I suppose. They've got a good win against Scotland in Scotland, and then avoided defeat against Croatia. So I guess that's how I see Group D. Group E, like I said, Slovenia and Spain. Spain have probably been the biggest disappointment. England, have won a game at least. Spain probably the biggest disappointment so far. They've just not looked very good in their games. But it's looking likely because they get to play. They get to play Slovenia, who, again, you'd expect Spain to beat Slovenia. That's the thing. You would expect to beat Slovenia, and then Sweden gets to play Poland, who've been a disappointing team. I guess they have only got Robert Lewandowski. They haven't got a team around him, but you'd have thought Poland would have done a little bit better. But yeah, this is how tournament football goes. If you can grab a win, like I said before, if you can grab a win against someone, 3 points, as it's proving, 3 points is going to be enough. As long as you don't get hammered in your other games. If you win, draw and lose, if you get a good win, if you have a positive goal difference, 3 points, you're almost definitely going to get that one of those last two spots, because there's going to be, I think, 2 or 3 teams with 4 points going to get through as a third place team. And I think the last 2 are going to be 3 points with maybe 1 goal difference or a 0 goal difference. So that's why teams like Portugal need to be careful, because if they lose, you don't want to get that goal difference below 0, because at the minute Finland are there on -2, and then Switzerland are there on -1. So you've already got those 2 teams as third place teams with minus goal differences. All you got to do is get to 0. Which Portugal, as long as you don't get beaten by more than 1, I think. If they lose 1-0, they'll be in there. But if Portugal lose by a couple, then they go. I'm not jumping across groups here, but just, I keep going on tangents. But it's going to be interesting. We've got obviously 3, England's group tonight, and then Group E and F tomorrow. Then a couple of days of no football, which is, I mean, this week and a half has really flown. Like, I remember back in just before the tournament, I was thinking, this could be 3 games a day for ages. Could be great. That age has lasted, obviously, 9 or 10 days, and here we are with the last 16 already. There's only 2 games that have confirmed so far. Italy playing Austria, and Wales playing Denmark. So I mean, Denmark. I haven't even mentioned Denmark. So obviously Denmark, after Christian Eriksen had cardiac arrest and the whole thing went down with that game. They came back and played that game, and Finland managed to beat them. At that point, there was almost no way back. But they've really galvanized, again, kind of the other side of the sword that I mentioned. They either were going to completely crumble or galvanize. And I think the outpouring from the football world, and I guess the world in general, really galvanized them. And now they're playing for something. And then they just came back and just, put their head down. They almost beat Belgium. They got beat by Belgium in the end. But then they went and smashed Russia at home as well. So that home advantage, the reason why I picked Denmark in the first place to get out of this group is because they play all the games at home. And that crucial game against Russia, which it did turn out to be crucial, was in Copenhagen. I mean, it's a home game, fever pitch crowd, playing for Christian Eriksen, trying to get out the group. It's huge. So they smashed Russia 4-1, and the goal, I mean, at one point it was looking, it could have gone either way. I mean, Finland were hanging on to Belgium at one point. Finland ended up losing by 2 goals. Denmark ended up putting 4 past Russia. So the goal difference swings. That's why, because obviously all the 3 teams now in Group B, Denmark, Finland and Russia, all end up on 3 points. So the first qualifier is points between the teams, but they all beat each other. They all have 3 points. So the next one down is goal difference, and because such a wild goal difference swing, Russia got hammered. So if they had just kept it a little bit tighter, if they'd lost 2-1, I think they'd have qualified. So they obviously had a big minus goal difference. And then obviously Denmark managed to rack up the goals, and Finland let a few in. And it just the projections changed very, very quickly just because you conceded too many goals late on. So that's kind of how it goes, I guess, in tournament football. When you goal difference, when you play 3 games, it's going to probably come down to goals in some way. And if you get beat 4-1 in a tournament, you're always going to have problems, because goal difference is, like I said, goal difference is always going to be a problem. So we've got England tonight, Group D tonight, and then the other 2 groups. The France group, France-Portugal is going to be a massive game. That's going to be interesting to see how Portugal rebound. I mean, because if they get beat bad, they could go out. If they get beat 2 or 3-0, as they did with Germany, I mean, they got beat 4-2 by Germany. If they do that again, they'll be out. So they don't want to slip into much deeper minus goal difference. So that's gonna be very interesting. See how that goes. The Formula One happened on the weekend. I mean, I can't keep this season is for a few reasons. This season is intense. It's crazy. Mainly because I think I've not even seen really too much. Obviously, you've seen a lot of videos and a lot of articles and a lot of comments from people saying about how the regulations affected different teams. Like because I do regularly watch old races from previous seasons, well mainly last season, or if there wasn't a race last season, go back to 2019. Like Mercedes were the dominance difference is clear. At the time I was thinking, okay, it's still quite close, half a second to a second, that's how much Mercedes are in front. But now that I see it, Mercedes were very, very dominant last year. I didn't really appreciate it until I see this year how close or how in front Red Bull are. Because Mercedes were qualifying a second faster than everyone else. And now we're talking about a second covering the top 8 or whatever it is. So, the difference now is stark. I mean, Mercedes, for whatever reason, whether it's Red Bull have really taken a step forward, or the regulations have really punished Mercedes, or Mercedes have focused behind the scenes, they're focusing really heavily on 2022. But wherever the behind the scenes permutations are, Red Bull are overall slightly better. They've managed to adapt to these racetracks really well. I mean, Red Bull are always good in the street circuits, we know that. They got beat in Spain, which was quite comfortable for Mercedes. And then the first 3 races, again, Hamilton and Mercedes kind of had the edge. I think, to be honest, at the beginning, Mercedes probably were better, which is, I think everyone had us believing that Red Bull were better at the beginning. But I actually think Mercedes were better than Red Bull at the beginning, and it was just close. So obviously Bahrain, as you see, this is the 4th different race now. We've had strategy play a big part. So 3 of them, it didn't really matter what happened, but these 4 races has literally been one team's gone for a strategy call and the other team has lost because of it. So Bahrain was Red Bull pitting, Hamilton staying out. It's like, okay, cool, come and chase me down. Verstappen chased Hamilton down, made a mistake on that track, running wide, and then couldn't get back and have him. So Hamilton kind of got away with one there. And then obviously there's a couple races in the middle. The one that Imola when it rained, and Hamilton they came together at the first corner, and Hamilton went off and all that stuff. Hamilton again got fortunate because there's a red flag and a safety car, so he managed to get all the way back up to second after being front wing damage in the gravel. And then Mercedes started getting better. Portimao, they just overtook Verstappen. They were a bit better then. Spain, they made a good strategy call. They left Verstappen out. Red Bull left Verstappen out, and Hamilton pitted, and then chased him down on fresh tyres and just overtook him. That was easy. So they've done that they've done that a few times now, where one team stays out, and one team pits, and then it's, can you chase me down over 20 laps? That's happened now 4 times. So the first time, Bahrain, like I said, Hamilton won. Second time in Spain, Hamilton pitted, chased him down, overtook him, won the race. So it's kind of, those 2 strategies kind of offset. And then I guess, France on the weekend. So I'll explain it in more detail. So obviously the practice sessions are strange because they're very, very strange actually. They're stranger than I realised because the teams tend to, well, it's not quite sandbagging. They have specific things that they want to do. I mean, it is practice. It's not qualifying. So they're literally practicing. But because there's lap times on there, everyone focuses on how quick people are going. I think in some ways it'd be good to get rid of the lap times, but then it wouldn't be very watchable. But teams are going through their routines, checking out all these settings, seeing how the car handles, seeing how the car does in fuel runs. So they do long fuel runs. They see how the car will go in like a race setting. They try different like chassis changes and front wing, rear wing stuff. And then because the times are up there, people are focused, Red Bull are quick, Mercedes is slow. Mercedes always seems to be bad in practice, unless they really get out there and set a quick lap. So if they're behind early, that means they're, either doing something or they're just slow. So Red Bull were obviously quick all weekend. Hamilton and Bottas was better throughout most of the weekend. They would get to qualifying, and it was very close, very, very close. Verstappen was on pole, and then which turned out to be better than. Well, given that Hamilton was second, it turned out to be better than they thought, because I think at one point it wasn't even looking like they were going to get that close. So then in the end, the race begins. Verstappen makes a mistake on the first corner, which is an unforced error. He kind of just ran wide and went off. So Hamilton took the lead, and Hamilton built the gap comfortably. It was comfortable for most of the race, most of the first half of the race, and then pit stops happened. And then pit stops for Mercedes at the minute seemed to be like a massive Achilles heel. Like the last 3 races, every time a pit stop happens, Mercedes seemed to screw it up. So with Hamilton specifically. So whether it's a slow pit stop or a pit stop too early, this time, because of the speed of the guys behind, they pitted Bottas and Verstappen pitted first. And obviously, when you pit first, you get quicker, you get fresh tyres, and that means you can go quicker before the other guy pits. So obviously, if the other guy's running on his worn out tyres, he's going to be going slower than a guy on fresh tyres. So if you stay out for too long, you're going to be doing slow lap times, while the guy who's pitting is going to be doing faster lap times. So by the time you pit, the gap is going to be a lot smaller than it was before the other guy pitted. So that's exactly what happened. Hamilton had a good gap. It was a 3-second gap, which is normally enough for that kind of thing to not happen to you, because based on out laps, so the first lap outside of the pits, and the in lap, which is the last lap before you pit, based on those, 3 seconds is quite big to lose. So Mercedes obviously thought they were fine. So they pitted Hamilton, and Verstappen overtakes Hamilton. So Hamilton had a stop. It was relatively slow, and Verstappen was just going very, very quick on his outlap. So then second phase of the race kind of went along, and Hamilton was kind of keeping in close proximity to Verstappen. And then towards the end of the race, obviously the tyres were running out. So it was looking a bit. It wasn't looking like all the tyres would last as they thought. They thought it should be a one-stop race, change the tyres once, get to the end of the race, and kind of do their thing there. But the tyres were running out very fast. So Red Bull decided to pit Verstappen. It's like, okay, cool. You go into the pits, get fresh tyres on, and you're going to be quick for the rest of the end of the race. And then because Hamilton and Bottas had track positions, they were first and second without having to pit. And they had a big-ish lead. I think it's about 19 seconds with 20 laps to go. It was one of those, again, as I've said, in Spain and Bahrain. And it happened last year, a year or so ago, in Hungary. This whole stay out long on the worn tyres and have the quicker guy chase you down and then have to overtake you. That strategy is kind of worked. It generally works for Mercedes, because when they decide to do it, it normally means that they can really get it done. So this time Red Bull did it directly to get revenge for Mercedes doing it in Spain. And I mean, I've been watching, obviously, like I said, I've been watching Formula for ages, but I think this race was probably the most intense that I can remember in years. Certainly since the Rosberg days with Hamilton. Probably since Abu Dhabi in 2016 when Rosberg won the championship. This was unbearable. I just couldn't sit down, because it was, you see the gap, and you see the Hamilton's maxing out his tyres just to stay in some sort of gap. You see that Verstappen's charging through. Bottas putting up. No, Bottas was fuming, to be fair. They left him out too long on these tyres. They should have pitted him, but I think that they left him out there to block Verstappen from Hamilton. But they would never come out and admit that, because if they did, he'd have to leave or something, to be fair. But so yeah, Verstappen was chasing him down 20 laps, and then there was a period, I think, with it was 8 laps to go, where the gaps were not shortening as quickly as they were before. Hamilton was actually going quicker than Verstappen for a few laps, so he kind of delayed it for a while. Verstappen sailed past Bottas, who you'd have hoped would have done a better job, but as a Mercedes guy, you'd have hoped he'd done a better job. Sails past Bottas, and they had a 5-second gap, and I think there's a 5 laps to go. And then he just chased him down, and then by the time Verstappen got to Hamilton, Hamilton made it quite easy. The pundits and some of the pundits on Sky were saying, why He didn't let him through, but he definitely didn't defend hard, as you'd expect. Verstappen sailed through, win the race. Perez again is low-key the MVP at this minute in time for Red Bull, because he's in the last, since Monaco, Baku, and now France, he's like really stepped up. So at the beginning he was kind of a bit off and not too sure. Now Bottas, so in terms of the number 2 drivers in these teams, Bottas is struggling like bad, and the team chemistry is quite bad as well at the minute, because his strategy stuff, it seems like they are focusing a lot on Hamilton. Either he hasn't realised he's number 2, which he should do by now, or feels that he should be given more help, but he needs to just be quicker. And that's just it. I think he needs to be quicker. So Perez clearly is pushing Red Bull along nicely, and Verstappen is, as of this minute, the best driver in the grid in terms of form and the car he has underneath him. I'll say I was impressed last week. This week was another one where he dealt with a lot of pressure, because he had Hamilton behind him for a long time, like right behind. And he had Bottas as well. So he had both Mercedes chase him down, and he managed to hang on. So that Red Bull car is obviously very quick, but he is scary prospect at the minute. And right now, I mean, this was a Mercedes track. I think they said Mercedes have led every single lap that they've raced at this track. So they raced at this track twice, 2018, 2019. They didn't race last year. Mercedes have led every race. They've led every lap. They've won every qualifying session, every practice session. This is like their track. So the fact that Red Bull got pole and they managed to go and win the race as well, just on pace. They had a lot of straight line speed. That's concerning for Mercedes, obviously great for Red Bull and these neutrals that everyone talks about. So I think going forward, we've got a doubleheader in Austria, which I've watched both those races back yesterday. It seems to me that it's another track that obviously Red Bull, they've won a few times, but Mercedes have been better at. And the last time they were out there, Mercedes, at the start of last season, so the Austrian Grand Prix was the opener for the 2020 season, which was delayed with COVID. So they did a doubleheader, so 2 races there in Austria. The first race was wild because half the cars didn't even finish. I think probably because they had so much time off and they didn't have enough time to do any testing. Half of them didn't finish. Hamilton got penalties in qualifying and in the race the first time round. And then the second time round, he won the race. And Mercedes had more speed. So in terms of the track, again, it's another one that Mercedes should be looking at winning. But Red Bull right now are just very, very good. So again, these races are going to get even better now. Now that we're going to tracks that Mercedes should be winning on, the racing is going to get more intense and it's going to get more interesting. So from now on, it's going to be regular circuits, and then obviously Mercedes have been better on regular circuits, historically throughout. So 12-point lead for Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship, and Red Bull lead by 37 in the Constructors. So again, we're going to a period now where it's like you need to, if it's Mercedes, you start winning races, and if you're Red Bull, you need to just win as many of these races as you can. While striking while the iron is hot, it's got to be done. So put more pressure on them. The US Open Golf was kind of, there wasn't too much drama for 3 rounds. It was kind of very steady. Everyone was kind of doing their thing. Louis Oosthuizen was doing well early. The big guys were kind of in, and then they suddenly weren't. And Jon Rahm was in there. And then the last round, it looked like Oosthuizen was going to win. He'd been leading or co-leading or just second the whole tournament long. Wasn't making too many mistakes. Brooks Koepka missed a few putts at the end. Bryson was looking like he was going to try and go and win. Then he made bogey, double bogey, quadruple bogey in the space of 4 holes. Because he's trying to overpower the golf course, he's trying to do his big swing thing, and it just is not working at some of these tracks, especially some of the really good courses. This isn't going to work. So Jon Rahm was kind of an outsider. He wasn't playing in the same group as Oosthuizen. So Oosthuizen was the leader. He was in the final group. Jon Rahm was kind of playing along. He made hole 17 and 18. He made two monster putts, like huge putts you would have like 10% chance of making. I mean, two in a row to make two birdies, get into the co-lead, and then get into the lead rather. Oosthuizen made a bogey. He went out of bounds off the tee. Savage. He went out of bounds off the tee. He's normally quite solid with his drives as well. He went out of bounds off the tee, made bogey, and then he went short. He missed the fairway on 18, and he couldn't reach. Well, he thought he couldn't reach the green with his second shot. He needs to make an eagle. He needs to make an eagle to get into a playoff for Jon Rahm. And you heard him talk to his caddy. He's like, I'm not going to be able to reach it. I have to lay up and then try and hold the chip, which obviously didn't happen. So Jon Rahm won the US Open 2 weeks after testing positive for COVID, and having to withdraw from that tournament. So he was leading a tournament. He's about to win it comfortably, looking like the best player in the world. Gets pulled from that tournament because he tested positive for COVID. And then 2 weeks later, first tournament back, goes and wins the US Open, playing very well. And right now he's the world number one. Now he could be the guy, because he's got the personality, he's got the sort of the attitude to go forward and really stake a claim. Because there's a lot of, like I keep mentioning all these guys, Thomas, Koepka, blah, blah, blah. They all kind of have the talent to be there. They all win tournaments now and again, but nobody's doing a Tiger Woods or even, I mean, anyone. That's no one's really saying, right, we're gonna. I mean, Dustin Johnson threatened for a while, but nobody's really staking a claim to be best player in the world, dominant at the minute. So Jon Rahm again could be that guy. So could a lot of other guys, but I guess we'll see how he kicks on. We've got the British Open in July, so that's going to be interesting. Rory McIlroy threatened for a bit in this tournament again. He's kind of back. Ended up falling out a bit. Brooks Koepka threatened for a bit longer than a bit, then he fell away. Bryson again lost 7 shots in 4 holes, which you just can't do. I think he was -4. He was close to the leaders. He threw himself out of it. Justin Thomas never threatened. Spieth never threatened. Morikawa kind of hung around. So all these guys are kind of just, like I keep saying, like they're all just sort of, chugging along. Nothing too spectacular. But Jon Rahm has been spectacular for a while now. When he's obviously not got COVID, so he could be the guy for sure. So I guess watch this space, see what happens there'll be a few tournaments before the Open, and then we'll have the Open itself, which is the favourite for. And it could be Jon Rahm time from here, to be fair. So it was great. I mean, 2 months apart on 17, 18, you deserve to win the tournament from there. The NBA playoffs, obviously, still going on. That has not finished. Last time we spoke, it was, I think, the 2 teams who did end up winning. Apart from the Brooklyn Nets and the Bucks were 2-2, and then the 2 teams that ended up winning the series were behind at the time. So the Clippers were behind 2-1, and the Atlanta Hawks were behind 2-1. And both of those teams at that time probably expected to lose those series, but they came through. The Clippers won a good game 7. Atlanta Hawks beat the Sixers, who had another implosion. I think there's a big inquest into their team now. Ben Simmons has been terrible. Joel Embiid's kind of been playing it by himself. And then the Clippers managed to win. Kawhi Leonard could be out of the rest of the playoffs. I think he could have an ACL tear. So Paul George had to step up. They won that series. And then the Bucks and the Nets was game 5, 6, and 7 were insane. So obviously the Nets went 2-0 up, looking like they were going to sweep. Harden gets injured, or Kyrie gets injured, then Harden gets injured. Harden kind of came back. He had a pulled hamstring. I think he missed one game and kind of played a few minutes. Kevin Durant went into superhero mode. One of the best performances you've ever seen in the playoffs. 50 points, dragged his team through that game 5, and then game 6, the Bucks managed to win at home, as they should have done. James Harden kind of played most of that game. Game 7 was close throughout, like 1 or 2 points in it either way. James Harden was in there. He played most of the game. Wasn't his normal self, but he was kind of in there as like kind of just kind of going through the motions, sort of. Kevin Durant, again, superhero mode. Giannis was kind of in superhero mode as well, doing quite a lot. But Giannis had Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton assisting him. So it's kind of like more of a team rather than just the Nets and just Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant forced overtime. It was like an inbound. It's like seconds to go. Inbound. Kevin Durant, who's been defended around the edge of the 3-point line, pulls up. Like I think he swivels as for a fadeaway three, which is people don't shoot fadeaway threes, but shot his fadeaway three, but his toe was on the line. Like literally, I don't know what size he has, probably size 20 feet. Literally swivels, and because he's on the line, it counts as a 2-point because obviously you have to be outside of the arc for it to be 3. He swished this fadeaway. Well, it ended up being a 2, but a fadeaway shot over this defender. Everyone thought he'd won the game, but it was only counted as 2. And then overtime, the Bucks took over. So the super team is out, mainly because they lost Kyrie Irving, and James Harden was like at least 50% hobbled. And they still took the Bucks to Game 7 all the way to overtime. So, it's okay, it's what it is. I mean, if you lose your players, as LeBron's found out, you need a supporting cast. You can't do it all by yourself. The Suns are in. They won Game 1 against the Clippers in the Western Conference Finals. So I quite like the Suns. And the Atlanta Hawks are going to play the Bucks now. Both of those series are going to be very, very good. There's obviously no Kawhi Leonard for the Clippers, so they're going to struggle against who are essentially the best team in the NBA at the minute, Phoenix Suns. So looking forward to both of them going another 7 games. And then the finals are going to be, from here, I mean, I said it from round 2 onwards, all the series are going to be good. So this one is going to be, both of those finals are going to be very, very entertaining. So by next week, I don't think there's going to be any series that could be over. Unless there's some sweeps, we'll probably still have some interesting games to bring you lot next week. So yeah, that's a wrap. 4 big sports, 4 big weeks/weekends. This week, obviously, we're going to have, I guess, the wrap up of the Euros to date. We're going to have the last 16 games. So yeah, next time I jump on here, the last 16 is going to be over. So we're going to have the quarterfinals. So probably I might do a little wrap up of where we're at once all the group stage finishes, and see who's going to play who and how it looks compared to, I guess, what the predictions look like. These last three groups are going to be, they're all very close and very, very competitive. So we'll see what happens there. This weekend we've got Formula 1, Austria, part 1 of this double header. So we've got Austria this week and then Austria next week. Championship is going to reach, we're at third of the way through now, kind of. So race 7 out of 22, maybe 23, depending if they get replacements to the ones that have been cancelled. So yeah, part 1 to Red Bull, advantage Red Bull so far. And then NBA playoffs are going to be wrapping up. So yeah, appreciate watching, supporting, sharing, and I will see you next week.